Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm Shivali and you're watching Swiftly Shivali. And today we're talking about properties in Swift, and specifically property wrappers. Property wrappers are growing in popularity for iOS developers after the introduction of SwiftUI. You will notice that in all SwiftUI code, we use a new @ symbol to notate a property wrapper. So much so that the main property wrapper was introduced this year at WWDC 20, and that's all we need in order to start an app with Xcode 12 and iOS 14. So if you're familiar with Android apps, they have something very similar called Dagger. In any case, this is a very powerful addition to Swift, so let's jump right into code. So before we get started with property wrappers, I want to go ahead and recap some of the basic functionalities that properties already have. So properties are values that are associated with a particular class, structure, or enum. So in this case, as you can see on my screen, I have a struct called suitcase, and it has two properties. One is color and one is weight. So these are known as stored properties, which are stored values that are part of an instance. We can also have something called a computed property, which is calculating a value as opposed to just simply storing it. Let's see an example of this. Here in the second structure that I've created, I have three properties: a passenger name, two possible bags, which are of type suitcase, and I'm going to add a fourth property here, which is not stored. It's going to be computed, and we will call that variable is total weight acceptable. And it's going to be a Boolean, so true or false. And what it's going to do is compute the value. So we can go ahead and explicitly create a getter over here, and we'll say let total equals bag 1 weight plus bag 2 weight, and then return that total with a computation here that says if it's less than or equal to 50 pounds. And over here we can see that this value is not necessarily just stored, but every time we want to access it, we're going to be doing this kind of computation. So those are the two basic types of properties that one can have in Swift. And then also another thing that we can do with these properties is obviously to get and set them. So if we create a new bag, which is of type suitcase, and let's give it black color and 25 pounds, then with our properties we can go ahead and say bag.color, and so we're getting that property, it's black. We can also set it to something else. We can set it to blue, so that's setting it. You can't set a property if the variable within it is let, so that means it's a constant. So in this case, we're not able to set the color. What we could do is correct this and say variable, but in real life, it's not possible to change the color of a suitcase. So we're going to leave that as set, and that means it's going to be get only. Another thing that you can do with properties is to define a property observer. This is to monitor the change in a property's value. And so two different property observers that you can use is willSet and didSet. So for example, if we have a ticket and we have a passenger name, we could create an observer with it saying like willSet this property, and before setting it, this is called before setting the property. And we can ask our customers if they want to go ahead, if they want to be certain that they want to set it. So we can put in something like about to set the name of a passenger, please confirm, or something like that. And then we can also have another observer called didSet, and what didSet does is it will print out after the property is actually set. So we'll just say something like, congrats, you have successfully changed the name of the passenger. So let's go ahead and see this in action. We can go ahead and create a new ticket. So we can say like ticket to Paris, and it's equal to a new ticket. And we have a passenger, and let's just say it's me that's going on this trip. Then we have bag, I have this bag, and let's go ahead and create another suitcase here. It's blue, and this one is like 45 pounds. So over here we have ticket, and now let's go ahead and change the value of the passenger name. Suppose I can't make my trip anymore and I want to transfer my ticket to someone else. So let's go ahead and say ticket to Paris, and the name, I want to change it to my friend Sally. And so first it will say about to set the name of the passenger, please confirm, and then congrats, you've successfully changed the name. Now we can also set a condition within the didSet to say if the passenger name is not the same as the old value, then it's the only way that we've successfully changed the name. If you're trying to assign the ticket to the same passenger, then that's not a valid case. So we can go ahead and say if passenger name does not equal to old value, and old value is a keyword that basically it keeps track of the old value that we were currently working with. So over here, so now if the passenger is now Sally, and we want to again try and change the passenger name to Sally again for some reason, because we forgot we already did this, what's going to happen is about to change the name of the passenger, please confirm. Congrats, we've already changed it because we changed it from Shivali to Sally, and now we're attempting to change it for the third time, or for the second time, and it says about to change the name of your passenger, please confirm. And over here we'll see that it did not get successfully changed because we put in this condition, and we'll confirm that, oh, this is not a valid case, so we're not going to do this. So those are some of the basic functionalities that you can do with properties, and now we can introduce property wrappers. So property wrappers add an additional layer of separation between the code that manages how a property is stored and the code that defines a property. So when you use a property wrapper, you make a struct, enum, or class that defines a wrapped value property. So let's see this in example, and I will go ahead and create a new property up here for the example of property wrapper. And over here we'll define a struct, and we'll call it 50 or less. And what I'll do is use this @ symbol as a notation. I'll say @ property wrapper, and over here, and then I have a struct, and what this will do is it will have a private stored property called weight. So this will keep track of the weight in each of the suitcases that I want to take. So it'll get clarified a little bit more in the lesson, but over here I'll create an initializer, and I'll first set the weight equal to 0. Over here you can see that this error is saying that we need a wrapped value. So we'll go ahead and add that here and call it, it has to be called wrapped value. And it's going to be of type int because it's going to wrap the value of the weight, and we'll set the getter and the setter here. And it's going to return the weight if we want to get it, but if we want to set it, this is where we're going to put our condition. So we'll say weight is equal to either 50 pounds or less. So either the new value or 50 pounds, pick the minimum. So that this way we won't be able to create anything with a weight that is higher than 50. So over here we can see that we have 50 or less, and what we can do is we can limit the suitcase to have a weight of 50 or less, because our example over here only gave us the total weight acceptable has to be less than 50 pounds, but that doesn't really make sense with the real requirements that airlines have. It's really, 50 pounds per bag that you take, not 50 pounds total. And so how do we go ahead and account for this? That's where this property wrapper will come in. So we'll use this @ sign, and we'll say at 50 or less over here, and we have wrapped the stored property weight within suitcase with 50 or less. That means that anytime we want to assign a value to weight, it is going to be 50 or less because it adheres to this same this computation and this property. So we can go ahead and see this in example. And since we've already added our condition here, we can go ahead and remove this value. And let's create a new bag over here. Large suitcase. It's purple. And let's try and set the weight to be something extremely large, like 75. But that does not adhere to the airline's restrictions. So let's see what actually happens when we try and check in this bag. The weight is going to be reduced to 50 pounds, even though we tried to check in a bag with 75 pounds. Because we have this property wrapper, it's going to, when it goes into the setter, it's going to pick the minimum between 75 or 50 and always return 50. So you can use this property wrapper over and over again throughout your code base if you have something that needs to conform to some kind of requirement like this. So any struct that I can create that needs this 50 or less requirement, any property that I want, I can make it adhere to this property wrapper, and that's really cool and powerful. Supposing maximum capacity on some kind of like elevator or something, the items that you put on there have to be 50 pounds or less. You can go ahead and reuse this same property wrapper over and over again throughout your code base, and you don't have to do that logic again and again. So if this makes sense to you, if you understand the use of property wrappers, then give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and continue watching Swiftly Shivali.